Also, if you have a small bucket or bowl of water, that there's enough space to put both of your hands inside. So maybe it's a good moment. We're gonna wait a couple more minutes, maybe to prepare it now. If you don't have it, so just a cup of water or whatever you have that you can put a little bit of water inside. Okay. Ideal is a cup and a bowl, but if you didn't bring anything of that sort, or just some kind of a water container, aside from the bowls that we're going to use again today. Okay, people. So let's begin. So welcome, day 2 today. First, I understood that yesterday there were a few moments that the connection was a bit problematic, the internet. So I apologize for this. We prepared everything and a special modem to broadcast this class, but it was on the wrong option. So the service maybe went up and down a couple of times. I really hope that today I am on the correct option in the modem, that it's supposed to just go to the computer and not to fly to any neighbor. Mm-hmm. So I think that today the internet should be fine, but I apologize yesterday if for a moment the quality dropped down. So let's begin. Let's pick it up from and a little bit connect what we're going to do today to yesterday. So there was a small deviation yesterday that the idea of chaos came up. And I made a few phone calls and I went back to my notes and had a few conversations from people that I trust. And I was reaffirmed that chaos is not the topic that I would like to deal with in improvisation. The reason that I said yesterday is the reason that I still argue. Chaos is mostly a mathematical concept, and it's very, very difficult to look at humans because mathematics happen in a perfect world and humans are way too complex in order to be thought of mathematically. So chaos can be a metaphor, but it's not something that I would like to use pedagogically. And it can be a feeling, people can feel a chaotic situation. And then I don't want to just, as we learned yesterday with improvisation, I don't want to say no. I want to say, instead of just no, and I offer an alternative. So my alternative, and I think that it could be that for some of you, you would say, okay, Tom, what you propose is the same as chaos, but so it's just semantics. But I think that also from some of you, it can be something really helpful, and is to differentiate between chaos, which I don't want to deal with, and unknown, which I very much want to deal with. Okay, so unknown, uncertain, unexplored are things that we definitely want to use and as inspirations for the practice of interplay, for the practice of improvisation, which is broken down into meditation and play. So all of those things are very connected to things we don't know, the things we are not certain about. And we want to visit them again and again as we practice, okay? To explain, some person that studied with me for a few years, he sent me a message before the workshop, and he said, Tom, I read the text, and with the things that we worked on, I wanted to make a little bit of sense, and I didn't understand how I can use it to say if an improvisation is good or bad, okay? And then what I told him, I don't judge improvisation by good or bad, but what I can say is that sometimes we don't improvise, okay? Which kind of broken down to the other things we said before. Sometimes we don't play, sometimes we don't meditate, sometimes we don't interplay, sometimes we don't improvise. All of these things, they can exist partially, they can exist fully, and there are situations of practice that they don't exist, okay? I sometimes practice things that have nothing to do with meditation, or very little to do, or very little to do with play, or very little to do with improvisation. And the idea of unknown, this is very important. The search for unknowns already takes us closer to the type of practice that I'm trying to describe in this workshop, okay? And I think a nice reference for this would be, there's a very famous quote by Donald Rumsfeld. He was the United States Secretary of Defense. The context that he said this quote is like, can take us into a political realm, again, that I don't want to enter, but I will say anyways, just for the sake of being decent. He said it about that the US was questioned about their policy in Iraq. You know, they're like, maybe your policy is actually consequentially leading to more weapon in the Middle East or something like this, okay? Now, political context aside, and the quote, well, instead of the quote, I will say it a bit more in simple language, would be a bit nicer. So he said, there are things that we know, that are things that we know that we don't know, and there are things that we don't know that we don't know. Usually the things that we don't know are the biggest kind of changers in our policies, in our behaviors, and in our strategies, okay? So again, he made a differentiation. What we know, what we know that we don't know, and what we don't know that we don't know, okay? Which is a very interesting exercise in thought. I would like to add, Mr. Rumsfeld was not an artist, okay? I'm an artist, so I'm adding another thing that it will complete this kind of geometry of known and not known. And this, there are things that we don't know that we know, okay? And here comes to mind the very famous quote from Saint-Exupéry in The Little Prince, the most precious and beautiful things are the ones that are hidden from the eye, okay? It's right underneath us, but we don't notice, we don't see it. So back to our topic, in theory, the practice of interplay, the practice of improvisation, supposed to lead us more to the realm of the things that we don't know, okay? Either what we don't know that we know, or what we don't know that we don't know, okay? So this is kind of to contextualize and connect a little bit to yesterday's session. Let's begin. And I want again that we start with the breath. And I want that we will do the same exercise we did yesterday, but opposite. So we'll have 3 songs. In the first song, I want you to synchronize your movements and your breath, thinking about all of these ideas of the consciousness that we said yesterday. How can I increase my awareness to where my mind is within the body, where my consciousness is within the body? How can I make the gap between breath and movement smaller and smaller and make it more and more in harmony? So first song, moving with the breath. Second song, standing, stop moving and doing the same process, breathing, awareness, so on. Third song, sitting, okay? So no movement, sitting, and the movement is just eternal and the awareness to the breath. So the same thing we did yesterday, only opposite. Starting with moving, second song moving to standing, third song sitting down. Is that clear? Okay, good. We will start from the beginning of the playlist of Interplay second day. So first song is Feel First Life by John Hopkins, and we go second song and third song immediately after. Let's do it. And slowly come back to the screen. Okay. So we will follow a similar strategy to yesterday, also today, and we're basically going to start again with the body. As I said, the idea of starting with the body in the context of the interplay, in the context of the improvisation, is to establish a perceptive presence. Okay, so if I even expand more this idea that I'm borrowing from craniosacral therapy, we want to establish perceptive presence. In craniosacral, they talk about fields. Okay, so there's like the field that is the circle between the therapist and the person that's receiving the therapy. There's the field of the space and the composition that they have in the space. Then there's the field of, I don't remember, I'm not, I'm not in shape for craniosacral methodology, but basically establishing perceptive presence talks about establishing certain fields, that this will be the fields that we will engage in within the practice. So basically for us, this can be established both which sensory information we get, and then establishing this meditative field, you know, which is kind of internal focus, and establishing a playful field, which is like picking up possibility of things to react to. Okay, so sensory field, meditative field, playful field. This is kind of the three things that I'm trying to basically that we practice. And if you think about yesterday's session, it includes this, all of the work of the throwing and catching with the balls, then later the work we did with the feet, and then the last one, which was already like, you know, the freedom of choices of, okay, what happens when we put the ball down after using it for establishing all these fields. So today I want to follow again a similar strategy, but to a little bit go further in how I practice these things. And I want actually to start from the legs today. So yesterday I felt the hands were a bit more present. So let's start with the legs. And I want for now, for the legs, that you will use a pair of socks. Okay, so just for the next, let's say, I think it's 3 songs, the next task. 3 songs, yes, we have 3 songs. I want you to use a pair of socks, okay? The reason is that there is something interesting when you put the socks, and you know, it changes the amount of friction that you have with the ground. Now, again, there's no way, you know, in a lot of things, for example, when I was in dance school, we had classes that we had to do with socks and classes that we had to do barefoot. For me, I usually move barefoot, okay, in almost all surfaces. But I think that there is an interesting change that happened when we put the socks, and then the friction changes. So I want that we start with this, and then we'll see how it feels after we take off the socks. And basically, we will have 3 songs that will go like this. The first one, just because, you know, as a first kind of task, we will just see what footwork, okay, we can do with the sock. So if usually my footwork is more stepping, disconnecting and connecting the legs, now that I can slide and that each step is less stable, what this quality of moving, what it opens up, okay? And we can think about the meditative field will be what relationship with the ground I'm developing with the socks. And then the playful field will be, okay, I can do all these interesting things with the socks that I can't do without. So this will be the first song. Second song, we will repeat again the exercise with the pencil. So same idea. I'm bringing back the idea that I want to locomote the pencil, but of course that with the socks, picking it up becomes much more difficult. So most likely, I will kind of slide it and roll it. Much more. Okay? So this will be the second song. Third song, just like yesterday, we bring back the ball, and the same idea with the ball. We locomote the ball with the feet, and with our little exception of using also the head. Any questions? Is that clear? No questions, actually. Yes, clear. Okay, good. So let's use, we continue in the playlist. We're going to go for Muse by Nicolas Jarre. And then next song by Fortet, we switch to the pencil. And the last song by Santana, we pick up the ball. Opening the perceptive field. Let's try. Okay, people, come back after this dose of cardio. Nice. Okay, so basically, even though we're following the same strategy of yesterday, we're also a little bit progressing with the challenge of the things. So again, we don't have a progress, you know, linear progress. Going back to yesterday, it could be research, it can be technique, it can be refinement. Improvisation, we can maximum have a study of what we did and what experiences were happening after what we did. So more than trying to get better, I would kind of challenge you to be aware of more things or of the same things while you're open to unknown things. Okay, so we're going to do a little bit of a mix between the perception of the upper body and the lower body. Okay, so to explain the exercise, I will tell a short story which you can take off your socks, recommended to take off your socks as you listen to the story. So it's a story that I took from the book The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. It's a very famous book. And he has this like a story there that it goes like something like there's a kid in this nomadic Bedouin tribe, and the kid is depressed and his parents don't know what to do with him, with his depression. They look for somebody to teach him happiness. So they start to ask about ladies in the village and other kids, and that he will play with them and get educated and something, and nothing helps. The boy is depressed, okay? He doesn't know happiness. And of course, it's normal to be sad every once in a while, but they don't understand why he cannot be happy at all. So they hear about this famous monk, and we're talking about something that I would contextualize as kind of Sufi, imaginary desert, Khaleesi. You know, I'm not exactly sure the specific country, but like, you know, some kind of a royal Sufi desert wisdom. And they hear about this monk that lives in a castle. He's very famous and he's very well known for improving people's lives. So they decide to save money and give it to the boy and send him on a journey to this monk. And the boy goes on a very long journey that Paulo Coelho tells some story that happens in the journey, but we will jump to his arrival to the castle. He meets the monk. The monk tells him, okay, you know, you came for happiness. The first, your first task, your first exercise will be to take this spoon full of oil and to go explore this whole magnificent, beautiful castle that was basically bigger than anything that the boy has ever seen in his life. But make sure you don't spill the oil in the spoon. The boy, you know, very serious about the task of happiness. He takes the spoon of oil and he's like going up, and the castle, it splits. And now, after a few hours of walking that he really feels that he discovered everything, he go back to the monk. So the monk was like, okay, give me back my oil. And he gives him back the oil. And he said him, so what did you like the most? Did you see the hanging gardens in the golden balcony? And the kid has absolutely no clue what the fuck the monk is asking about. And did you see the big tower, the high tower with the colorful birds? And the boy again has zero clue about what the monk is asking him about. So eventually that monk is telling him, I sent you on a task to explore the castle without spilling the oil, but you just didn't spill the oil. You didn't explore anything. How do you want to be happy without exploring anything? So the boy say, okay, so what should we do now? So we give him another spoon with oil, and he said, like, go do it again. So the boy goes and he realizes that the hanging gardens are incredibly beautiful in the golden balcony, and that you can see tons of colorful birds in the high tower and the other magnificent, beautiful experiences. And after a few hours, he comes back to the monk and he was like, man, that was gorgeous. The most beautiful thing I've ever seen in my life. And he doesn't give me back my oil. He looks at the spoon, there's nothing, of course, you know, everything spilled. Probably it spilled in his first step. Okay. And then I'm not exactly sure how Paulo Coelho wraps up this whole fiasco, but basically something on the realm of, happiness is being able to explore without spilling the oil. Okay. And go read the book if you're interested in the real secret of happiness. I don't have it. Anyhow, okay, this idea does contain something interesting, okay, about kind of this idea, play and meditation, awareness. Where is it? So what I want you to do now, I want you to take the tennis ball and continue the same exploration that we did now, locomoting the ball with your feet and with your head around the space. But as you do it, I want you to hold a cup of water. And I want you to not spill this water, but I want you to continue the playful research of locomoting the ball, which you and yourself know what does it mean to continue to explore the unknowns of it or not. Okay? What happens if the water spills? This is very bad. B will kick you out of the workshop and you will not get your money back. No, I'm joking. This will not happen if you spill the water. Nothing happened, but try not to spill the water because otherwise, probably you will not find any happiness. Okay, so we're going to take 2 songs for this one. And this will be, yes, exactly where we are. Walking on the Moon, first song, and then it continues into Calle Luna, Calle Sol. Okay, so 2 songs, cup of water, ball. Let's try. With the sock. No socks anymore. With the socks, the water will spill. Okay, let's take off the socks now. Okay, the socks were more, sorry, just one thing. The socks were more to open up the possibilities of playing with the friction. Okay, when we're bare feet, we can still play with the friction. It's just not so central to the experience of moving. Okay, so imagine that the socks were kind of a conditioning tool, but I recommend now to take them off. Let's do it. Okay, people, and come back. Yes, no, I don't want them to share it, but Jose is asking if you found happiness, raise your hand. Okay, happiness or the meaning of happiness, okay. Okay, nice, I congratulate you. Okay, so I wanted we without staying with this too much, I wanted to move into kind of the last exercise in this chapter. Okay, in this first chapter that kind of like to establish the perceptive presence. And now this actually, so of course this one was a bit more, the idea was, okay, we use our reaction to the things, we use something that is very reactive to find something within. And now we kind of want to, again, do the opposite, a little bit more meditative. Again, nothing here there is no clear distinction between the meditation and the play. We kind of, a little bit kind of drift a little bit towards here, a little bit towards here. So I wanted we will take the water and go into the water a little bit more. Okay, so if you notice all of the objects that we use, if you think about them, you zoom out for a moment, there's the pen, the pencil that we locomote with it, but also we use it to record, we'll use it later also to write and make sure that it's part of our interplay. Is the ball, okay? So also here, a lot of meanings and a lot of possibilities that we're not necessarily going to touch today, but the rolling, the curve, the momentum, the weight. So there's a lot of things here that kind of we open our perception to this. And now I brought in the water that I also wanted will bring in. Okay, and also here there's a lot of possibilities to kind of take from this idea. And also all of these objects, they are all very, very metaphorical to later the musical, kind of the musical composition that we do later. Okay, so yeah, we talk about rhythm and flow. Okay, so we can think about the rhythm as bouncing a ball. Okay, we can think about the flow as locomoting a glass of water in the space. Okay, so we have a lot of possibilities. Again, of course, you can invent your own and find your own. But I wanted all the things will kind of, kind of paint a picture for you that is your experience from your interplay. So basically, now I would like that we use this ball of water. Okay, so we will a little bit kind of slow down the pace, and we will again have two songs. One song will be that we take this ball of water and we're gonna walk in the space slowly until we find a place to place it. Okay, so there's a lot of talks in improvisation about instant composition. Okay, I don't like so much the term instant composition because I believe that any composition is instant. Okay, but what I think is good about this term is that it's open up the possibility that at any moment you can express or you can play or you can meditate on the composition, on the relationship with the space. So you're going to take one song just to walk slowly with this weight, okay, and really give it as much attention as possible. Again, unlike the task before, not spilling it is an understatement. I want you to really have a lot of kind of value and treat this water, this bowl of water, as a very precious thing. Then when you find a place that you feel that it's appropriate to place it, you place it. Center, side, whatever that you feel is the instant composition that's inspiring for you. Then, if you place it after 1 minute and the song goes on, stay, okay? Reflect on your choice of composition. Might be that you change your mind also, okay? If the first song is over and you didn't place the ball anywhere, wherever you are when the first song is over, place the ball down. Then bowl, yeah, I'm saying bowl, but maybe with my accent is not clear. Bowl, not ball, bowl of water. Just there to make sure. Then in the second song, the bowl is placed. I want you to put both of your hands inside the water. I want you to close your eyes. And without too much manipulating your experience, I want you to move your spine as your hands are inside the water. Okay. A very, very, very kind of a general guideline. Try to observe if the movement of the spine is you reacting to the water. So it sounds like water goes through your hands, through your arms into your spine, or that from the spine, you speak to the water. Either way. Okay. So again, one song, you walk around with the ball of water until you find your instant composition. You place it. Second song, you can sit, you can kneel. I like to do it kneeling, but if it's not comfortable, you can sit. And then hands in the ball of water, and you either move the spine as a response to the water, or with the spine, you transmit or express to the water. Is that clear? Yes? Cool. Okay, I think we are with the playlist exactly in the same place that I wanted will go next. No, sorry, we will jump this. Let's go to number 3 by Aphex Twin as the first song, and then Echo by Onakodomo as the second song. Okay, it just continues right after. Yeah? Let's try. and let's meet again the screen. Okay, so just a moment. This. So it is a good moment to have a short pause and to see if, first of all, if anyone has something to share or ask. So we finish this first part of the class. I see, Jenny. Okay, Jenny, unmute yourself.
So with having in a bowl, would you think that when you select, like I just quickly picked a container, but if you change the different shape of the container, the relationship of what you're experiencing and how the water moves, would that be another factor you could play in with?
Sure. Yeah.
Or is it just about the water being,
the water being water? No, I think you can experiment with this. You know that, you can experiment with this. I have a bowl that I like, and I'm running with it for quite some time now. But I'm sure that, like, you know, there can be, I'm sure there's more variations that I didn't discover yet.
Yeah, I guess I'm just trying to see
totally something.
What are you asking? What were you thinking when you came up with that exercise? Like, what specifically is the element to kind of draw from that? A little bit more clarification around that.
Well, again, it's a bit, I think it's a bit, I mean, it reminds me a little bit of yesterday when there was this question of, like, you know, there was a question after we worked with the breath about specifically what I would recommend about something with the breath. I wouldn't recommend, you know, and I think that in general, this whole, when we deal with the topic of improvisation, you know, I don't think people should learn how to walk or how to breathe or how to feel or how to listen. You know, people should practice these things. So for example, here, I bring the water, first of all, as a sensory experience, second of all, as inspiration, and third of all, as a reference. You know, so kind of, again, open up different fields, okay? So, you know, it will be very redundant, even though I'm sure that it exists, of me telling you what's the right way to feel water. You know, I have no clue. You know, I just, you know, feel it again and again, and opening up this possibility. I use it as an inspiration, as a reference, and as a tool, you know, but I'm not, it could be that, like, you know, instead of deviating, I'm not interested in transmitting an objective. I'm interested in using this as a question, okay? So water being water is a very good question about movement. I want to ask it again and again. So I think that would be, does it make sense how I'm answering this to you? I'm kind of trying to, cool. So maybe, you know, maybe that's the key. You know, for me, water can be a great question, you know, and I think that's what I'm trying to do. Now, as far as and maybe this also can be, as far as the setup, you know, the choice of using, first of all, me making this very strong choice of placing it somewhere, and then, you know, what do I do with this choice? I think this also kind of points towards something very interesting about improvisation. You can place the water anywhere. And then afterwards, as I said, you put your hand in the water and, basically you can do anything. It's like your hands in the water move the spine. Endless possibilities. Like, that it would be very, very weird to think that there's a way to do it. So basically what we created something that in music is called a counterpoint. The counterpoint means that in improvisational context, the placement of the water somewhere will create something that we must relate to. Okay, so that's it. It's almost like, it's like bring a lot of attention to the first stroke on the canvas. After this, do whatever you want. It's a wonderful improvisational exercise, because there is something it's almost dualistic. Once you did the first one, that's it. The possibility of doing the first thing is dead. You did the first thing. And yet you have endless possibilities after. Okay. So if I didn't want the counterpoint, I would tell you, take any container you want, take water, touch the water and move. Okay. Here, there's just opening. But I also want to point out to the possibility of the counterpoint, because I think it's important. Again, as an improvisation workshop, it's an important concept that I try to kind of embody and express in the exercise. So I think this is kind of covers everything that I can say about my reasons.
Can I contribute?
Yes.
Because I think that I think you are pointing out also at something that is very interesting. Like yesterday we were talking about flow. And water is one of the elements probably in nature that it's more connected to flow, or at least like, this is like the image that as humans made of water, it's like something that is very adaptable and it flows. And then we dance flow, But again, there is a gap in between the image that we have and the experience of the actual element. And I think that this exercise was like a wonderful opportunity to like experience the element without any image in the brain. It's just like fully the experience, the actual experience. So, yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Jenny, for the question. Any more? Yes, I see Enzok. I don't exactly know. What is it? Enzok?
Enzo.
Enzo.
Yeah, so my question, it's not really a question. It's more that looking back on what we did, playing with the tennis ball was more like playful time, and then playing with the ball of water was that more like a meditative time. Do you at some point realize what you're doing and like try to, because when you're playing, do you try to like also find a way to meditate? And when you're in the meditation part, like with the ball of water, you try to play with it too? Like, do you try to have fun with the water and everything?
Interesting question. I would say that the key is the breath, I'm trying to be aware of the breath in either one. And the awareness to the breath is what keeps me what keeps me also a bit more dynamic, a bit more possibility to have multiple experiences. I play with the ball, and then when it gets really exciting, or when I almost spill the water, when we're with the cup, I'm getting really excited, I'm paying attention to the breath. And then this paying attention to the breath, for example, makes it more meditative. With the ball of water, again, and this is also, it's something, because I'm used to it, I can go into something that is really deep. It's almost like, I'm almost like falling asleep into the water. And also there, the breath is what keeps me okay. It actually keeps me light, rather than like sinking in too much. So I wouldn't necessarily in the middle of meditation tell myself playful, or when I play, like, no, also where is the observation? But in both of them, I use the breath to kind of make it a little bit more versatile. Yeah. I also want to say that this is one of the reasons that I choose these two things. When I started to write about these topics, a lot of people were like sending me messages like, Tom, I love your work, but you don't understand. This is so dualistic what you're doing. The difference between play and meditation is only inside your mind. And like, I mean, I didn't answer to all of them, but many times I want to answer is like, what are you talking about? You are dualistic. You're making a distinction between what's inside and outside my mind, motherfucker. Like, you know, that's like, this is a, so I do think that these two mindsets, you know, they have overlaps, but they also have places that, you know, again, they don't always meet. You know, there's some places they meet, some places they don't meet. So the breath, this is the transition, but also sometimes it can be just play, just meditation, and it's absolutely fine. Okay. Kyle.
I found that there was this overall theme of collaboration, and to kind of bring it back to yesterday, you talking about yes and, especially with the ball and water. Like if I didn't yes and, the ball or the water would get away from me, so the ball would run out of the room, or like the water would spill. So I had to be like a good dance partner, right? Like a good improv performer with it. And in the first few games, the stakes were much higher, right? The ball would run away, or the water would spill all over the place, which it did. But it kind of led into like the more subtle yes-anding, working with the hands in the water and moving through the space. And the stakes weren't as high, but the yes-anding was kind of like the groundwork was laid down.
Very nice. I really like what you say, and this differentiation between like the big yes and when the stakes are high, and then there's the subtle yes and. So it's very interesting. I didn't think about it like this. Thank you for sharing. Okay, I think let's end this part with this. Okay, we'll take a short break. Let's really like just a couple of minutes. And then we'll develop it in a different direction a little bit. So a few minutes break, and then we continue. Okay, go. Okay, people, let's start coming back. Start my video also. Why am I not video? Start video. Okay. So. Just take one more minute for everybody to return. Okay, so basically, I want now that we a little bit continue with our musical journey. Okay, seeing how all of this kind of what we opened up in the first part, where does it put us? You know, where we are with our possibility also to play and meditate on the movement and music relationship. Yesterday, we opened up these two kind of fundamental terms of rhythm and flow, okay? That for the sake of simplicity, we use the rhythm. It's kind of like the possibility to stop or to hit, okay, with what we hear. And flow is actually to not hit, okay, for now. To kind of, every time that we have a possibility, we actually, instead of stopping, we continue. And now I want to a little bit take it further, which means to bring topics that are a little bit more challenging. And the first one will be groove, okay? So I'm reminding again, like the conversation yesterday, rhythm and flow, I'm not giving you the best terms, the generic terms, the fundamental terms, the whatever. These things are self-defined. The more I talk to people, experts, musicians, dancers, different types of artists, people have their own definitions, okay? But the more definitions that we hear, I think the more we can learn about these ideas, okay? So don't feel if you hear what I say now, it's like, oh, I define groove so much different. You know, it's totally fine. Maybe you can find a middle ground. Maybe you can just play with my definition today. Don't take it too serious. Groove, from what I know, it comes from music, okay, the term. Then from musicians, the metaphor is that groove is like the grooves on wood, okay? Grooves on wood is this little like kind of spaces, like, you know, wood is not a smooth material. It has little kind of holes, edges, things sticking out, grooves. Again, maybe native English speakers know what I'm talking about, the rest. So it's like, it's the non-smoothness of the material. And then if you take two pieces of wood, and this one has grooves, and this one has grooves that fit perfectly, you know, they can make one. And this is the metaphor to the relationship between the drum and the bass. The drum and the bass, okay? So the fitting of the drum and the bass, especially in jazz, blues, and rock, this is called the groove, okay? But we're not playing neither drum, neither bass, and we're not using music that is so much based on drum and bass. So what I like to think about groove is and I wrote here something, I just need to find it, a lot of notes for this workshop is, Yeah, sorry, one more. And then if you take groove outside of jazz or rock or blues that they don't have necessarily drum and bass, you can have as a percussion, bass, you must have bass for groove from some reason, and pace, okay? So percussion, bass, and pace, okay? So this is another musical definition, okay? Now, what I thought of groove is that this is the relationship, sorry, it's not a relationship, is the velocity of the rhythmical transitions, the velocity of the rhythmical transitions. It will get simple, I promise. So I want now to do a movement exercise that you experience a bit like my idea of groove. So it's kind of like we do the same exercise for the rhythm that we go with the stops, but we're going to have two ways to relate to the transition. One of them will be to use a stretch between the stops. So if yesterday we had a beat that and we were moving with stops in the rhythm, now on the same beat, we will try to make maximum stretch. Okay, so maximum muscular engagement in the transition between a stop and a stop. Okay, so this will be one option. Okay, and this is be kind of like a thick velocity. Okay, so as if you're moving inside a very thick texture and you're still stopping or hitting the rhythm. Then the second one will be all of a sudden the opposite. Okay, you try to think as if you're moving in something very, very smooth, as if you're like in a bath of coconut milk or oil, you know, and it's like your body has no resistance, but you're still hitting the rhythm. Okay, this will be kind of the different two options of kind of this velocity, the texture of the groove. Okay, so basically what I'm proposing that velocity and in between the rhythmical stops or hits, this will be the groove. And of course, everything we say is like, you know, is in a relationship, in a dialogue with the music, with the listener. So the first song, you will try to go with this velocity that is like thick or stretched. And then in the second one, light and effortless. Okay, is that clear, people? Yeah, good. Just survive the explanation. Let's do exactly where we are. So the first song, J Dilla, the X, this will be for the thick velocity. And then right after, Reflection Eternal for the light one. Let's try. Okay, opla. What happened here? Sorry. Okay, so good. Now, as I said, groove is a little bit kind of more kind of, you know, we a little bit step further. There's a bit more of a challenge to find the groove. To give you an example, why? Okay, so for example, critical thinking of improvised ideas and qualities. Rhythm and flow, we can look at any type of activity and we can see what's the flow and what's the rhythm, and we can probably find it. Then let's groove. I never heard the idea that, for example, you look at a ballet dancer, it's like, oh, what kind of amazing groove they have. Usually we don't see so much groove in ballet, for example. We see other things, you know. So the complexity of improvisational themes means that they're becoming a bit more rare. The more rare it is, the open concept, the more it's kind of tricky to define and use it in the improvisation. Now, I want to kind of touch another topic, and then we will have to variate so we can actually start hitting the gold, okay? The gold is the fugues and the etudes, is the possibilities of writing with qualities, not just practicing qualities. We're still kind of introducing, but I want one more, just so our world is a little bit more versatile. And the last one that I want to introduce for this workshop will be melody, okay? So melody, in general, is the idea of the connections between series of tones, okay? So as I said yesterday, I gave a small rant. You know, I'm getting old, so I can also rant. The problem with pop music nowadays that is very close to the problem of Instagram. It's small, short, and to the point, okay? So for example, nowadays you can hear a lot of songs that the tonality is very minimal. You have 2 tones, 3 tones for the whole song. Then you rewind. Only 20 years ago, you know, when you look at pop music, it's like billions of tones. You know, it's like it's going up and down like crazy. So to understand melody, you must have tones. So in a way, the idea of tones with movement is to find the flow between big changes without stopping, okay? That would be melody. Usually these changes, they can be described by a feeling, okay? Melody is usually described, well, it has such a beautiful melody. It has such a sad melody. This melody reminds me of my childhood. It's usually something that's very much connected to a feeling. But on a practical level, is the ability to change between things that are not so easy to transition between without stopping, you know? So this is kind of my interpretation of taking a melody from music and bringing it to movement. So for example, you know, if I can, let's say, transition between walking, lying on my back, and walking again in a light way, I would say that it had a certain melody, okay? Now, I can do the same kind of big dip and coming back up, for example, in a melody that is more heavy. Okay, and then, for example, it might be that it feels a little bit more sad, a little bit more lonely, whatever, you know, but I don't think about lonely or sad. I think about making transition in something that is unlikely to be connected without stopping. Okay, does it make sense what I said? Yeah, so it's easy. We can use now what we practice. So it means you can use this kind of like, you know, for example, thick texture. So make a very thick transition or making a bit more light. But what is important is that you really try to connect things that are not so likely to be connected without stopping or jumping. Okay, does it make sense what I'm saying? Yeah, good. Let's take just one song for this. Okay, so just the next one on the playlist, just so you have one more experience. Chan Chan, Buena Vista Social Club, perfect. So one song for this, and then we come back and start to mix it up. Okay. So, come back. Again, I'm opening doors. It's really worth more time. It's really worth more time of personal interplay. Okay, kind of trying to give you things that can go further than this workshop. But this experience now of, like, for example, touching these ideas, there's a lot of possibility also of integrating it into different languages. Absolutely. So don't kind of think that this is just scratching the tip of the iceberg. I want now to see how do we kind of extract themes from it. Okay, so this is where things get a little bit interesting. So the whole idea of, like, you know, what I started with, system of interplay. Okay, so we already, okay, you know, we have some idea of what's our mindset of meditation, what's our mindset of play. We see ourselves moving in between, you know, we allow ourselves to move in between. And now we want to start writing. Okay, and that's something that's very important. All great improvisers write, because if you don't write, the improvisation just becomes life. You know, just things happen. The writing, this is the counterpoint. You write, and you kind of, to contradict the writing, you improvise. So you have something to move into and go out of, and to move into and go out of. Okay, so very simple. We can just start writing, but I see that all of you are writing. More than this, I want to give you an example of how I use the idea of writing in movement. So the idea of writing in music, by the way, not the normal writing, but the idea that is called étude, which means in French studying, is a very, very interesting way of classical musicians to improvise. They would write a simple score, and then they would start bouncing it between them. It's like basically like hip hop, you know? So they write something simple, and then Rosé plays it and I play it, and then she plays it with a variation and I play it with a variation, and then the variation gets too far, so I play it with a variation that is a little bit original, and then, you know, and that's kind of a very well-known exercise of improvising in classical music, and it has a style, étude, very interesting to study a bit more. And I'm teaching an exercise of playing with movements that is inspired by this. I call my exercise drumming, because I think about étude of drumming, because that's my most significant musical background. That I studied the drum set, so I'm using drumming, but étude would be probably a more proper term. And the idea is basically that we just create with ourselves a conversation about variations, okay? And the variations kind of grow and diminish, and grow and diminish. I would really like now in this context not to give you too much of a rigid frame of how to work with this, but more of an open frame. So you basically, you find something, you know, you start moving, and then you find something that you feel that you can repeat. So for example, here I have something that I feel I can repeat. Then you start repeating it. And usually when I feel I repeated it like 5, 6 times, I start to see if I can repeat it with something else. Okay, maybe not feeling so comfortable with what I did. So I start repeating 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. And I see also how it changes. Then usually what happens if I find my 1, 2, if I did the first one 6 times, then the 1, 2, I would do only 5 times. Then I would add. So I would have 3 patterns, 4 times. 4 patterns, 3 times. Every time adding and every time practicing a bit less. Until I get to sequence. In this case, a sequence of 5, 6 moves. But then after I had the 5, 6 moves, I start to go back. So I do the sequence. I just do it a couple of times. And then I take out one thing and I do again just 5 moves. Again, just 4 moves. Again, just 3 moves. So the last thing that I will do will be again to do 5 times. And that's it. And then I finish my set, and I find something new that I can repeat. And the process goes again. So you basically, we're finding something that we can study, we practice, we add. As we add, we a little bit reduce the practice. So when we have one pattern, we do it just once, but then when we do it a bunch of times, 5 times, 6 times, I think in our case is a good number. But then when we add, we start to take out the number of repetitions. You understand the kind of the method? I don't want, yeah, look, I don't want you to, the idea is not that I can speak this method in a way that it will be really structured. I want you to work a bit more loose, because otherwise we're missing out the point and we turn out into a practice of technique. You do something a couple of times. Then when you feel you're ready, you add something. You feel you're ready, you add another thing until you came up to already, you know, a writing of a couple of things, a sequence or a sentence, you know, or a phrase. But then you start going back. You take the last thing you add, you practice again. You take out, and then you practice at the end what you started with a couple of times. And then you let go and you start a new thing. Okay? So this is kind of my way of it. It's very, very, I'm doing it for years. Okay, for years already. I love it. Okay, I have so much, you know, so much of a, I felt, you know, between me and myself, it was genius. I don't know for anybody else, because usually I was alone, but between genius moments from this practice. So, but it's really important that you keep a certain meditative, playful mind about it. Not, you know, and again, some of you here know me, I see a lot of friends. It's not sequencing, okay? It's not sequencing. It's the studying of adding and taking out, and not the refinement on putting, you know, pieces together, okay? So the people that know me try to see kind of, we have a subtle difference, as Kyle said, it's a subtle yes and. It's not the yes and of kind of puzzle pieces, okay? Let's try this. I think it can be a nice way. Also, what I want you to do, as you go with it, you can also, if you find a moment that you feel you made something genius, write it, okay? Usually when I'm writing these things, I'm using 3 methods: words, lines, and textures. Okay, so you can see words, lines, textures. Okay, so if you feel that you had a really good idea, put it on the paper. It's really important, and then continue with your etude. Is that clear, people? Good. Let's take, what I would prefer is that you go until I stop you. So it will be something between 2 to 3 songs. Okay, so you don't worry about finishing. And then if you did one etude, then you deconstructed, you start over, you do another one. You do another one. The first song that we will use will be appropriately called Etude 3. Okay, Etude 3 in the playlist by Nico Muli, and then it will continue to 1 or 2 more songs before I stop you. Okay? Let's try, people. Let's see what happens. Good luck. Okay, people, and start coming back. Okay. So very important to take another moment, even if it's just one person or two, because this needs to be, at least the experience here needs to be something that you feel you can use. So anyone wants to share something that he thinks can make this idea useful for the rest of the group, or to ask something that is critical to him or to her? If not, maybe not, so fine. Okay, very good, very good. Who? David, yes, David.
Sorry, just confirming that it's a total reset when you get to your fourth or fifth movement, and then you finish it, and then you just go neutral and go back to the beginning. Is that how you practice it?
Yes, the idea, you know, the hardcore improvisers will tell you that you can never go neutral. You know, you can never go neutral. You do try, but you can never go neutral. Always returning will mean that something changed. Okay, so yes, practically you should go to neutral, but it's you can be aware, and as you do it for many times, you learn that it's never really neutral after you come back.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? One more, we have time. Okay, cool. Yes, Misa, you wanted to, or it was? Yes? So.
It was in between, because I was like, I can say, and then I was like, maybe I don't need to say. So, well, I just wrote some words that I came up with, if somebody wants to use. Quality, size, music, how it affects the mood and the movement, dynamic, rhythm, eyes, details, accents, images, like using the stories and coming out from the movement.
Misa, can you repeat one more time?
Okay, quality, size of the movement, music and how it affects the movement. Or actually it affects for me everything, also like the state of mind. Dynamic, rhythm, eyes, details, accents, like if you want to accent the beginning or accent in the end or accent in the middle or make many accents or whatever. Images, like using imagination, like making a story or whatever, and coming out from the movement.
Very nice, Misa, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so now basically what I want that we will do, we're gonna, that it will be the last topic, and then maybe we can have some one moment of like, you know, just free for goodbye. But the last topic that I want to touch is the idea of fugue. Okay, so fugue is kind of, that's in my opinion, that's the topic to study if we're studying improvisation. Of course, that it's very important not to go to the disciplined idea of fugue. I didn't ask, I was planning if we have musicians in the crowd, but I will not ask. It's too late. But so fugue, of course, and then in classical music, the most known for making fugues and to making it a bit more of a known style is Bach. Okay, but then of course there's many other variations. Again, if you look at rock at its early stages and the legends of rock, especially Led Zeppelin, Hendrix, Rod Stewart, Joe Cocker, Neil Young, and all of them, you would see a concert there will always be this, what they call solo, drum solo, bass solo, guitar solo. This is basically a fugue, okay? This solo is not being pulled out of nowhere. It's being pulled out of a score, a theme, a mood that is almost predetermined. It's not predetermined, it's written. So the whole idea of a fugue, you write a theme. Write can be deciding, but making it clear enough that you can return. And then you try to make a counterpoint, which means to make an opposition that basically will make you to do almost the opposite of it without forgetting about it. And you go as far as possible, but return, okay? So that's kind of, this is the exercise that explains what is, I think, improvisation in the best way, because it gives us something to relate to. And now, if it's being taken further, of course, all of these people that I spoke about, because of pop, which means money, and the song needed to be reproduced in a certain way. Okay, at the beginning of all of their careers, the songs were extremely different. Okay, if you want to take even more extreme examples of it, Pink Floyd, the Echoes, which is a very famous album I put in the place, and it's never repeating the same at all, not even once. Later on, when the industry becomes a bit more capitalist, the necessity of repetition becomes more important than the fugues. And we don't have improvisers anymore, okay? That was kind of a short, short pessimistic layout of the idea.
Maybe famous improvisers.
Famous. We don't have famous improvisers. It's true. We don't have famous. We have amazing, brilliant improvisers. You cannot get famous because you need to do reproduction like a goddamn chicken. But anyways, back to our topic. What I want you to do is I want you to consider now with all the tools, and we have a bunch, the possibility that we start a session. In this session, you want to write a theme, okay? Writing a theme can be something. Now in the etude, we did an extreme version of writing. Writing can be much more loose. You know, it doesn't need to be even something that you repeat. It's like, you know, Misa gave now, for example, a list of, I don't know, 12 things. This list can be a theme, which is like, it's a huge theme. You know, it doesn't need to be that we need to take this list and memorize it and repeat it again every time. It can be very, very broad, but it needs to be at least clear enough that when we make a fugue, we can go make a counterpoint opposition. So what's one thing that didn't appear in the list? Trees. The trees will be our counterpoint. Misa didn't say trees. The trees is the counterpoint. So we go trees, trees, trees. This is the fugue. But we need to find a way that the trees will bring us back to the list that Misa gave. You understand a little bit? Now, no, I see no's in the screen. One more time. You start and you find something that's interesting for you. You know, it can be something extremely specific, you know, lifting the hand, and it can be kind of interplaying with lifting the hand. I meditate on my hand, I play with my hand, whatever. And then I need to find a counterpoint. So lifting the hand can be so many things, but it's not closing the eyes. So closing the eyes becomes the opposition. So I lift my hand, then I close my eyes. And then the closing of my eyes leads me to this amazing solo of Pink Floyd. You know, this like kind of totally different direction. And I go with closing and opening my eyes and closing and opening my eyes, closing and opening my eyes until I see my hand and I go back to lifting my hand. Is it more clear a bit? This example was you need to find a theme, to find a counterpoint, to go with the counterpoint as far as you can without losing your theme, and then come back to the theme, okay? That's the most simplified version of a fugue that I can give, okay? While we are keeping the theme, totally, you know, writing the theme can be anything. Now, you can now, what I recommend you do, have your notebook somewhere in the space open, so maybe, you know, for example, Rosé and me are very different. Rosé, her thinking becomes very clear when she improvises. So as soon as she have a theme, bam, it's on the paper, bam, the counterpoint is on the paper, okay? For me, if I go to the paper, I forget about my theme, I forget about the counterpoint, okay? So different people have different styles with this, okay? But when I finish, I remember all of my counterpoints that were, you know, when you don't, right? Doesn't remember anything. So try to work with the writing. You know, you want to finish with something that you can abstract from this session. You want a theme that you can at the end draw or write. And you want a counterpoint that you can somehow have a representation at the end or during. Again, you know, that's Rosé style, which is also extremely beneficial. During, you find your theme, bam, put the theme on the paper. Continue exploring. You found the counterpoint, bam, put it on the paper. Okay? Do you understand now a little bit more after all of this? I mean, there will be some point that I will continue giving examples and I'll just confuse you. So let's stop at this point and let's try. Okay? So let's see what we have left. I think we can go for, what do you say, long or a couple of short ones? Couple of short ones. So let's continue just where we were. Okay? I think we can go for it's a couple of short songs and I think it can be really nice. So let's go Mos Def, Sunshine, and the things that come after. We'll go 3-4 songs with this, just to see what happens. Okay, people? Yeah? Please, if you feel confused, start from themes that are familiar and interesting for you. You know, if, you know, do whatever it is that is usually a theme in your practice, okay? It will be a good beginning and you will explore your unknowns, I promise you. This technique of the fugue, this is what it's designed for. So if you feel lost or confused, start from something that gives you confidence. Let's do it. Starting from Mos Def, we're going for 3-4 songs. Let's see what happens. Okay, people. So, did you see my notebook?
No.
It's here. Okay, people. So, anyone wants to share or ask something before I give you the ending task and song, which will be done after we finish this Zoom meeting? Yes, Carmen.
I have a question concerning kind of like the going on of the fugues within that improvisation now. So I would start with like a theme, then I go to the counterpoint, and then I kind of approach to the theme again. That might be a slight variation of it. And then do I start from scratch again to develop a new fugue, or do I go from that modified theme to another counterpoint to keep going?
Very good question. I think that what I said to David, like that, I think in movement, you want to come to moments that you kind of try to go to neutral while knowing that you can never go back to neutral again. I think this paradox is good for movement. In music, they have a little bit of a different question, because they say that what comes after the counterpoint is called subject. And then after you come back to the theme, you have the question, if you go back to the theme, you then replace the theme with a subject, or you're doing a synthesis. Okay, but in music, they don't go silent, basically. They don't go back to silent. And I think that in movement, it's a bit more empowering and a bit more, I believe that for me personally, it's more inspiring to write like this, that after the fugue, I go back to something that is at least close to neutral. And then I make the next choice. Okay, good question. Anyone else? Okay.
Can I?
Yes, please.
Yes.
Giorgio.
Hello. And
Hello.
First of all, beautiful music, beautiful playlist. And the question is about the breath and thinking about the breath while moving.
Yes.
If is something like a paradox, because if you think too much to the breathing, sometimes the breath just stop or go out of the flow, how to say. Yeah, and sometimes just let it be, or something like that, or just put some accent in some point with the breath and let it go in the other time. I think sometimes helps me more than conscious breathe all the time. It's quite different from meditation, where I feel very helpful to think about breathing. But while moving, so I find, yeah, sometimes just the breath block because I think to breathe. It's like a paradox, yeah. Maybe, I don't know.
Thank you, Giorgio.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing. I think it's a really nice way to put it. I have to reference what I told Bren yesterday. I can identify with your experience, but I think that both of us didn't practice enough. And usually that's the problem with people who talk too much about how to breathe. Usually there's a lot of room for improvement. I experience people, usually old, because probably there is something about the time that is years, that they have such an unbelievable ability to be conscious to the breath as they're moving. When they don't, it's not them like, demonstrating it. It's like you experience this by moving with them. Again, I gave yesterday brand example of a fighter, but I also saw it with people who move, dancers, performers. So I think that it's a paradox because we didn't practice enough. I identify with you. Me too. When I think too much about the breath, it blocks But I think if we'll both practice for a few good years, this paradox might disappear. I think, I don't know. Maybe we need to talk again in a few years. Anyone else? Last one. Bren, yes.
I do want to say as maybe a potential counterpoint, at least as far as Krohn and Higson, I'd be interested to hear about, you just mentioned there are some dancers that also maybe do this, but at least with Krohn and Higson, and I think we both experienced like rolling with that level of people, where it could also just be that they're at such a high level that they can bring the focus to the breath. And because the difficulty of the task, fighting someone far below their level, like Krohn, for instance, will regularly tie his one arm behind his back and roll with them, right? So like for someone at that level to focus on the breath or have a conversation while they fight, I think is, might not be too challenging. And it could be from that perspective that they're able to do it. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I think I can, just because I don't want to get too specific here and too detailed, because not everybody is exactly in this world. I will send you some specific examples. I think in general, what you bring out to a little bit open up, and I think it's a very good point, what you bring out. Again, it's a very good counterpoint. There is always a question if, let's say I'm going into a situation of moving and I'm just focusing on the breath. That's ultimate improvisation. This is why I started with. I mean, it's just me and my raw material, me and the breath, whatever happens. Ultimate improviser. And then there comes always the question, how much technique do you need before you can do this? And I think this is a question that, I cannot answer. I had experiments with myself, with people that I was teaching, sometimes I was like, no, it's like this thing is totally irresponsible to take a person and not give them proper technique before you let them improvise. And in other times I was like, no, let's see what happens if people kind of grow on their own terms, and I don't manipulate the path of progression. I don't know. I don't know. That I think that it's a pedagogical question, that it's very healthy to make statements about it and to try, and probably to fail, because it's such a big question, I think that also what you say, and again, not to get too contextualized specifically about them, there is a little bit of like, you've been doing it since you're like maybe if you start at 17, there's different ways to approach this whole topic.
Right.
But I think that to keep it as a question mark and not to say exactly where it is, and to experiment, to try, see what happens if you come to learn something and you're like, I'm going to learn it as an improviser, and see what happens if you say, no, I need certain building blocks, want to know them really, really well until they're natural, and then I improvise with them, I think both are totally legitimate. So it's a good counterpoint that I totally appreciate. I totally share with you. And I don't know exactly, but
thanks, Tom. Yeah, wonderful.
Okay, people. So I think it's time we finish. Okay. I want to, like yesterday, I want to offer you to do one last task on your own after we finish this meeting. I think that after all of this content, now try to go and let everything go. Not holding on to anything, even not the breath. Whatever happens, happens. Okay. Also here, I think that it can be very interesting experience after going through all of this. We can go, you have options of very, very light, Every Time We Say Goodbye by John Coltrane. Then you have mild, Before the Beginning, John Frusciante. Or if you still feel that you want to scratch the mother, father, and origin of your subconsciousness, Pink Floyd echoes 25 minutes of your brain in a wash machine without anything to hold on to. So you can choose John Coltrane, every time we say goodbye, light, John Frusciante, mild, and Pink Floyd, hardcore. And do this on your own, see what happens. If you feel like it and you find something brilliant that you want to share with me, let me know. Thank you for coming to this workshop. It was a big, big pleasure for me. As I said, usually I have been working with these topics only in a creative professional context. It's the first time that I bring them out to a pedagogical setup. So it was very good feeling to share it. And again, also would be very glad to hear about your experience. So you can email us. B will send you all an email, I think, with the recording, because we would write B, we will just send it to everybody. It will be up for a week if you want to continue working with the material. We also have another small announcement and something to offer to you, but we'll send it through the email. It's another new project that we're working on, and we want to share with you because we think it's very, very relevant to the themes of this workshop. But this will come in the email, and that's it. And thank you very, very much. And I hope to see you also in the real world and not only through a screen soon enough. Thank you, and thank you to Rosé as usual. Always, the duo is working, and I am talking.
Thank you.
Much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Let's bye.
Everybody.
Thank you, Tom and Rosé.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Bye.